You're listening to Eat, Play, Sex with Dr. Cat, the place to up-level that sexy life of yours, with expert talk on sex, love, and nutrition. Interesting. I've always heard, because I've heard blue balls, but I wondered if that was a myth used to women so that they would have sex with them. Because I can definitely see that too. Oh, I don't want to have blue balls. You know, you're going to make me have blue balls if you don't have sex with me, right? And so you're saying that it's an actual thing.
Totally. With a Western medical name called epididymal hypertension. Yeah, it's legit. I've experienced it. And interestingly, I did an Instagram post maybe a year and a half ago asking like, hey, are there any women out there who've experienced anything similar to what you've heard of as blue balls? And it was just like tons of responses from women saying they experienced similar things, like actual pain in their abdomen, like feelings of frustration and pent upness, and literally physical pain. And that's what blue balls is like. If you have a penis too, it's you have legit physical pain that hurts, and it feels like the only way you can get out of that is through having an ejaculation.
Yeah. And how can a partner support their man who's practicing that? So whether it's because they have blue balls or they are practicing the semen retention, how could a partner support that?
Awesome question. Communication.
I'm full of them. I got them. I'm here for it.
Communication. It's literally as simple as communicating and showing up with each other with the intention to support, in the intention for connection and closeness, and also a curiosity like, hey, how can I support you? Just asking these questions. And if you're the guy who's wanting to explore these practices, educate yourself about them so that you can proactively communicate with your partner about this, because it's still a relatively new phenomenon in the grand scheme of things. Like, yes, maybe people listening to sex podcasts might have heard of this, but in the grand scheme of things, like, most people are used to sex ending with the ejaculation.
Yeah, we're conditioned that way.
Everyone's conditioned that way. And people, like, a lot of people who have sex with men, like, they see sex as being successful if the man has ejaculated. And if he hasn't, then it means something is wrong with them as a lover, and that's not true.
Yeah, that's something that's come up when I have male clients too. They're either, if they have difficult time with maintaining an erection or being able to have an ejaculation, and like their partner will feel really hurt and feel like they're not doing something right as a lover. What would you say to partners of men? Like, what would you say to them?
What would I say to partners of men who are doing these practices?
Yeah. We're doing these practices.
Yeah. Well, I'll just speak personally from my own experience to say what is the purpose of sex? That's a question I would ask. And for me, the purpose of sex is to experience connection and pleasure and intimacy and play and closeness and touch and aliveness and exploration, like a huge list of other things that has nothing to do with whether I ejaculate or not. And a lot of people see sex as this thing that could be a tension reliever, which usually ends in ejaculatory or orgasmic focused sex, and that there's nothing wrong with that. Like, I love that sometimes too. I'm still a huge fan of that. But if you can go into the sexual experience without the need for that release, if you've already done some sort of somatic practice, or like you've worked out, maybe you went to the gym for an hour and a half, or you went on a run and you really did something to move your body and get your blood going and get your breath going, then maybe when you get into the sexual experience, you won't need to have that release of an orgasm. And then you can just be present with whatever's there in the moment. And for me, I find that there's so much more connection and beauty and intimacy and like raw sexual passion and aliveness when the goal isn't necessarily to have an ejaculatory orgasm.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah. I will say, like, some of the most beautiful sexual experiences I've ever had have happened when I have consciously chosen to not have an ejaculation in sex. And then we continue lovemaking for a while into the point of where you have to be vulnerable with each other, you know, because you can only do something with somebody intimately so long before you have to really truly see each other.
What do you mean by that?
Well,
What was that experience like for you?
what I mean by that is I think a lot of people go to ejaculation, or they go to orgasm almost as like an unconscious coping mechanism, because there's a fear of true connection and true vulnerability and true presence. I've certainly done that in the past, when I was having sex with somebody and I was like, well, this is all right, I'm not really into this anymore, like, or like, I'm afraid of going there with this person, I think I'm just going to come, and it's, you know, done, no questions asked.
Yeah. Wow, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I even think about the definition of sex, and we think of orgasm or ejaculation as being the reason that we go to it, and so you're inviting more of a different intentionality around it, you know, connection and intimacy and pleasure, and I think even expanding the definition of sex is beyond penetration or beyond, you know, yeah, that an orgasm. So it's like, what do you have left? And there's so much left, but we get so narrow-minded.
99% of it. Yeah.
What are you doing? Like when you don't have that? Yeah.
Yeah, but it's a legit question that I get asked often, you know, and it's like, it's there. Yeah. Like, people don't know. And if you had told me 12 years ago that this was possible, I would have probably laughed at you and told you to fuck off, you know, really, because
You can still laugh at me and tell me to fuck off.
well, I might. But like, yeah, the point of sex for me used to be ejaculation. I even remember one really like kind of like asshole moment in my life when I was with a woman, and like, yeah, long story short, I didn't ejaculate in the way that I wanted to, you know, and so I made some sort of offhand comment like, I could have just done that myself, you know, and would have been much happier. Like, what's the point? Like, if you're not going to make me come, you know, why are
Wow,
we even doing this, you know?
what a dick. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then what?
Yeah, and then what? Then we were
Yeah.
sexual again. We didn't interact again, you know? And I felt totally self-righteous in that moment. I was like, you know, like your role as a woman, I was all involved in this, you know, mindset that was not great or healthy, that I'm not proud of, but that's useful to be able to look back on and say, wow, like, this is the programming I got from society. I didn't know better. I was taught sex from porn, you know, and from other people who watched porn. And that's pretty much it until I started discovering these books, you know?
Yeah, you know, it's still amazing to me, when I have male partners and they have some sort of struggle around whether it's erection or ejaculation and I share with them how I view sex and expanding the definition of it, and inviting, you know, even soft penises or even like anal play or whatever. And it really just like, I see it in them just go, this light in them just go poof, because they have never had that permission, or they've always been responded to by women as like, oh, that's okay, you know, as if it's like, well, I'd prefer that, but you know, I'll be nice to you kind of thing. And here I was like, no, bring it on. Like, there's so much more we can do. So I think for anybody here who's listening, who enjoys sex with men, I think having those conversations around, you know, redefining sex and really opening it up to these different possibilities is really healing from the collective conditioning around what sex is and what a man's job is and how they're supposed to be able to function or perform.
Lovers, thank you again for tuning in. If you enjoyed the show, hit subscribe and head over to eatplaysex.com to connect with me and grab my sexy guides. Because my goal here is to get you to eat, play, and sex better, so you can improve your sex life, which will improve every aspect of your life. Until next time, keep it sexy.